I'll now hand the call over to Shane Connolly, Senior Product Manager, HP Idle. Shane?
Okay, thanks, Denise. Welcome, everybody, to the HP Idle 10.5 release webinar, and we'll be going through a number of the advancements in Idle that we've made in 10.5 release, and we'll hand over to Sanjay Goyal halfway through and be going through some of the big data initiatives that he's been covering. So we can go to the next slide, please. So just again to cover the agenda here. First, we'll be looking at a little bit at the Idle strategic roadmap, where Idle is going, where we've been, and current state of affairs. 10.5 was released late last month in January, and we'll be covering a number of the key enhancements that were made at that time. And again, we'll transfer over to Sanjay for some of the advancements that Idle is being made in terms of big data initiatives. And finally, we'll wrap up with a little bit of QA. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Idle has been a key initiative for a lot of on-premise enterprises. And as we look forward into the strategic roadmap, as we go from today into sort of a future-looking exercise, we have a number of initiatives to help bring out the full power of Idle in a number of different settings. So we'll be continuing our Idle enterprise, but as we release onto a number of big data initiatives, you see here HP's made a big push towards Haven, which is the Hadoop Vertica and ArcSight, Salesforce, and so on, those initiatives, which Sanjay, again, will be talking to here in a bit. We're also looking to allow people to explore the use of Idle in a number of other ways, such as our on-demand APIs and eventually going towards a API marketplace, really opening up the power of Idle to a large number of people, hopefully from the large enterprises and smaller enterprises that are currently involved to more ad hoc development communities, again, looking into the future. So we really want to open up that power to a larger number of people, just from a strategic roadmap perspective. Go to the next slide, please. So to get into some of the enhancements that we've made to Idle 10.5 here, we'll go ahead and start off with the connectors and sort of looking at a data load perspective here from left to right on this image. That's where we'll start off. So in Idle 10.5, we released a new version of the HTTP and file system connectors, which have really a cool new self-throttling capabilities. They can hook themselves into Windows performance counters and then start to limit the number of threads and sort of pull them back as thresholds are met or exceeded. So as a sort of simple example, if you have something like an IAF server or Windows file server in which you want to pause crawling when those servers are at 80% CPU, for example, you can set up the connectors to remotely monitor those performance counters and sort of pull themselves back and pause whenever those are met. So you can do this with any of the Windows performance counters, which should allow you to do throttling for things like free memory, disk queues, network throughput, and so on. And in our roadmap, as we look at this, we're starting to have plans for self-rate limiting capabilities of other Windows-based connectors. This is a Windows-only capability of those connectors at the moment. Can we get a next slide, please? In addition to the connector, we also have a number of features that were added to the 10.5, which I think are 10.5 version of CFS, which I think are really going to help out a large number of people. You know, we've been hearing with the advent of Idle with the 10.0 version and the connectors in CFS, the whole restructuring in terms of the way that we do data load, we've introduced a really powerful Lua scripting engine to CFS as part of that. Well, we've been getting some feedback saying that the scripting framework, the Lua scripting framework that's underlying it, even though it's really powerful, is occasionally difficult to set up and to make proper use of. So we're taking a lot of that feedback and starting to integrate this into product capabilities. So we're, in the 10.5 release of the CFS, we're starting to include a number of new Lua scripts to sort of showcase as examples, as well as to simplify integration with other Idle components. So, for example, we've added scripts to do additional post-processing on some of the induction grammars. We've added integration scripts for Idle speech server. We've added additional sort of example or integration pieces for image server, as well as a number of other Lua scripts that are built into the deployment. We can sort of think of those as contrib-style scripts that are coming out of the box now with CFS. So we're looking to expand upon those, so over time you may see some additional ones coming out that we hope are going to simplify some of the more common things that people are really building scripts against to do additional processing. In addition to that, we also recognize that people are often making iterations of either the scripts or the config in the CFS, and as they're performing those iterations, they're really looking for a test harness to do so. That's one of the pieces of feedback that we received. So in the 10.5 version of CFS, we've also released an ingest test action to see what the file ingestion would look like without actually running it through indexing. So you can use this to test and debug configurations as well as scripts as you go through that process of sort of working out your test system or your development system on site. In addition to those, as we look sort of into the future, we're looking to expose a lot more of these debugging tools, make them available in GUIs such as idle admin and so on to really expose a lot of testing, debug, sort of frameworks to really allow people to take the most use of their idle system. In addition to this, when we look at one of the other things that came out in 10.5, another thing that's sort of really powerful is for those customers that are using the connectors largely as a sort of ETL type of thing for idle, the sort of transform and load bits, you can now use those pieces in the CFS to load non-idle things. So, for example, we've released a CSV writer, a JSON writer, and an SQL writer as part of the CFS functionality. So you can take some of the things that are coming through the connectors and ultimately just write them out to CSV, JSON, or SQL and load them up into another preferred location, whether it's a database or an Excel sheet, for example. And this is really hoping, again, to open up the ETL capabilities of the connector to a wider range of processing entities. And we really think that this can give a lot of power to the people that are using this for sort of non-traditional idle setups. You want to go on to the next slide? As we continue down the line, idle 10.5, we looked at, over time we've introduced a lot of capabilities for integration within the standard CFS pipeline. And two of those sort of major integration points are the idle speech server and the idle image server. And if we look at the idle speech server, one of the things that we added was the ability to process your voicemails and your corporate videos and so on using, again, that standard idle CFS enrichment pipeline that was back in 10.2 that we started releasing that. And now we're sort of continuing to make advances in those. So in idle 10.5, we're releasing a new language identification pack for automatically identifying the audio languages prior to indexing. So it can sort of pick out what language is most appropriate for doing the audio processing before doing so. And these are sort of new, highly accurate language identification packs, really hoping to open this up to, organizations that have multilingual content, basically, in either their audio, voicemails, or corporate videos, and so on. We've also added to the audio processing pipeline a sort of rapid adaptation mode for adjusting the acoustic model. So for those that are familiar with the speech server, you have sort of the ability to automatically adjust the text-based or your language pack bits, but you can also adjust the acoustic model as well. So you have your language model and acoustic model that you can now train or have been able to train for some time with the speech server. But we've added, based upon some feedback that we've received, the ability to rapidly adapt the acoustic model. So this is sort of to focus on the scenarios where you only have a few minutes of audio data to train as opposed to a number of hours to train the audio data. So this is really focused on people that just don't have a lot of time to help it rapidly adapt. This is a new sort of algorithm that we built into the speech server. And continuing on, so some of the other bits that we've added into image server, for example, we really think that a lot of people are making a lot of use of the neat new functions that we've built into the image server. And in 10.5, we're looking at expanding some of the object recognition stuff that we've done over the past year or so. And we've now added the ability to recognize 3D objects, as well as taking into account perspective transformation. So what I mean by that is we're looking at sort of defining three-dimensional objects to recognize within the image server. And then sort of whenever you get an image taken at any perspective, you can then use that to recognize the 3D object. And that perspective transformation has been exposed down into the 2D object recognition as well. So for example, if you're looking at a logo that has been skewed from its original location, you can set a new parameter that basically tells the image server to consider perspective skews as well on the 2D object, as well as the head-on sort of thing. So for those of you that are using the logo detection and maybe using real-world cameras for the logo, or we're trying to start to get into the range of 3D object recognition and, maybe not getting a broadcast feed where the logos are showing up in a sort of flat perspective to what you're looking at. This is really going to help you out for some of that. And for the developers that might be on the line here, an additional one that we haven't added to the slide, but sort of an extra nice to have here, is that you're no longer bound to the traditional ACI base64 encoding stuff that you might have needed to do previously. You can now upload your binary files to the image server as part of a multi-part form data post, which really is going to allow you, if you're building applications, to skip some of the processes that are now unnecessary as you deal with this, which is hopefully going to simplify a lot of the development applications being used for image server. Do you want to continue to the next slide? So looking finally at the idle server itself, we've made a lot of advancements in 10.5 that I'm really excited about. This is obviously the sort of core bread and butter, if you will, of the idle suite. So we've added, first of all, asynchronous query support. So we heard quite a few developers asking for something along these lines where they don't want to manage the threading support inside of, when making requests. And if you notice something like the image server, the speech server, those have been asynchronous for some time, and we're now sort of pushing this out into the core idle content engine. So you can now issue asynchronous queries to content. This is sort of moving in the same extension that some of those other servers have moved over time in terms of allowing them to operate in an asynchronous mode. Really cool. If we look at, the next one on here, the in-document structured analytics, for those of you that may have come from a sort of SQL type of world or something that's a little more relational in nature, you might be familiar with the concept of something like virtual fields in those. And we're adding a sort of similar paradigm to the idle engine, which we're calling in-document structured analytics, which sort of allows people to create new sort of very flexible way of dealing with metadata fields after indexing. So we saw a lot of people that were issuing sort of summation things of numeric values. For example, you might have a monitor price and a keyboard price and a screen price, any number of prices that are indexed into a document, and then sort of realizing after you've indexed it, I forgot to add the total price value, or maybe not realizing that would have business value until after you've done so. And so we've started adding a number of structured data analytics functions into the core idle engine, so it can start performing these math operations on your fields after they've already been indexed. So this really allows you to take a lot less time when you're planning to do your load into idle, and really gain a lot of that value afterwards by performing this. And last here, that's definitely worthy of note, is that we've added some compression features to the core idle engine. Basically, for those of you that are already using a lot of idle, this is compressing the node table. For those that are familiar with that, for those that are not, there's a good chance that you're using this. And overall, we've looked at sort of a number of different compression algorithms inside. We've exposed a lot of them as part of the 10.5 release. And basically, when we look at this, obviously compression is going to vary by quite a number of facets, including, what types of documents you're pushing in and so on, whether you're using the node table at all or not. But for just as a sort of rough level of estimate, when we've looked at some sample email data pushing in, we have seen over 30% disk space reduction as one sort of sample. And, as a result of this, you also end up with reduced disk queues and so on. So we really think this is going to help a lot of people with their sizing and making sure that they're not, using a lot of extra hardware, basically, as well as hopefully speeding up queries to some extent. Again, sort of your mileage may vary in terms of the overall, but from what we've seen so far, it looks really promising to our customers. So with that ends the major IDLE 10.5 features. And again, for those that are signed up onto the release notifications, you probably received these, a more extensive version of those. But for those that have not, please log on to our customer support site and have a look at the full IDLE release notes. Can we get a next slide, please? And with that, I'll hand it over to Sanjay Goel.
Thank you, Shane. As you just heard, IDLE 10 has put in a lot of effort in making it more manageable, more robust, and it's our best release so far. We have done a lot of work in building applications in the Autonomy team, things like voice of customer, social media analytics, surveillance, broadcast monitoring, but also across HP in various other divisions. They've taken IDLE and built knowledge applications around the basic engine. Here, I'm going to concentrate more on the big data side. As you know, IDLE is an enterprise-level search and analytics engine and has been able to analyze rich media, text, image, video, and speech. And we're adding those abilities to the other big data engines, part of the HP Haven initiative, things like Hadoop, Vertica, and ArcSight. And I'll go in more detail in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So here we are strengthening the HP Haven platform. As you might have heard, the Haven platform includes Hadoop for Edge, A for Autonomy, V for Vertica, and E for Enterprise Security. The N is the ability of our partners and our customers to build N applications in the areas of customers 360 or security 360 or healthcare, any application you take that needs analytics as part of its basic value proposition. In this slide, I'm going to cover more on what we have specifically done for the three products. ArcSight ESM, which is a security monitoring application. Today, that product mainly looks at network data. With IDLE's capabilities, it adds the capability of email and social media analysis, and we'll go into more detail there. We also have IDLE working on Hadoop. Now, Hadoop is becoming more of a big data storage engine, and how we analyze data with IDLE on top of that. We'll go a little bit more detail there. And then finally, for a lot of the SQL users of analytics, Vertica is becoming engine of choice. We are adding the capability of IDLE analysis to that user base as well. And we'll go into some more detail there. Next slide, please. So first, HP IDLE for Hadoop. We have just launched this product, and it allows IDLE to be run on the Hadoop nodes as a MapReduce job. So we have a SDK that allows the set of functions on the right, things like entity extraction, sentiment detection, text extraction, a bunch of these around images, around speech, around video that are fundamentally unique in the industry. And by having them operate on Hadoop as the data enterprise hub, we're now able to shine light on the dark data. A lot of the basic data warehousing and data analysis has been on the classic structured business data. What IDLE does on the Hadoop infrastructure is now uncover the analysis on a lot of the unstructured data of the things that you heard around the enhancements we have done for text, for image, for video, and for speech. By adopting this, you can actually reduce your coding and implementation costs while being able to do complex analysis with the functions that IDLE for Hadoop provides. Next slide. Another exciting part of the IDLE 10.5 release is the ability for Vertica users to write user-defined extensions. And what this does is to allow people who use SQL to match machine data, business data, and human data. With that, I mean people can start to analyze what was traditionally just a binary large object like a blob. But now with the ability of IDLE to analyze that, they can get a 360-degree view of their information. And a lot of folks have started to use this in retail, in security, to get more information and tie the unstructured and the structured data together. An early access of this is being made available in the Vertica marketplace, and you should be able to see that in the February timeframe. Next slide, please. Finally, we've also been able to add insights from IDLE analysis into the security area. So ArcSight ESM is a leading product in the industry that is deployed in security centers, and they're not being traditionally able to see content or context from things that humans produce, things like email, things like social media. So with the capability of IDLE for ESM, we have been able to analyze email content, the attachments, for things that are either malicious or suspicious, and can then alert the ESM security analyst with any threat that arises from these. So typically, things like insider threat, in large financial institutions or enterprises or the federal government are things that this capability adds a lot to. The second is the ability of ESM to monitor social media, things like Twitter, Facebook, and be on top of any negative sentiment about the company or any negative activity happening around the security perimeter. So with these two, the ArcSight ESM product gets a lot more intelligence for their users. Next slide, please. You can learn more about these enhancements in 10.5 and the big data enhancements we just talked about. For folks who are new to IDLE, you can learn more with your product overviews, or you can get your questions answered at the emails shown here. For those who are on IDLE 7, this is also a great time to upgrade. We have many exciting upgrade programs available, so please do reach out to us, and we look forward to hearing from you. At this point, I'd like to turn it back to Denise for questions.
Thank you, Sanjay. Next slide. At this time, we will pause for questions. Once again, if you have a question, please enter it online now, and we'll answer as many questions as time allows. Our first question is for Shane. What languages does the out-of-the-box speech language classifier for speech server support?
Right. So we won't go over all of the languages here. For the full list, you can, of course, go view the release notes, but I guess in short, the classifier covers about 20 languages, the 20 most common, and that will be basically the vast majority of the customers are going to cover the vast majority of their audio data with this. It's going to cover your English, your French, your Spanish, your German, as well as, Mandarin, Hebrew, Arabic, and so on. So this is really going to cover quite a few. And again, for a full list, please go see the IDLE release notes. Thanks.
Thank you, Shane. I see another question here, and I think this one is for you, Sanjay. Is there a way to try out IDLE for Hadoop?
Yes, there is. We're making a 30-day free trial edition available. Please check autonomy.com/IDLE Hadoop in the next 15 days. We'll make a version available there for free trial.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more question. So here's another one for you, Sanjay. I'm already using Elasticsearch with Hadoop. What is the difference between Elasticsearch and IDLE for Hadoop?
Thank you, Denise. That's a great question. Elasticsearch is a great starting point. Folks have used that to do keyword search. What we're hearing is it doesn't scale well from people who have used it. There are a couple of other limitations there. It's text only with a limited set of languages. As you're aware, IDLE is an enterprise-class search engine. With the power of Hadoop, it scales much better and also is able to analyze and search through images, video, and speech. So IDLE for Hadoop is enterprise-class engine, whereas Elasticsearch is still something that's very dev test in a trial mode that people use. So we welcome them to use Idle for Hadoop and then try it out.
Thank you, Sanjay. Next slide. Well, we have reached the end of our call today, so I'd like to thank Sanjay and Shane for speaking to us. Please note that this webinar was recorded and a replay will be made available. We will send an email to all those that registered with a link to view the replay. Thanks to everyone for attending, and have a great day.